Hello and welcome. You're now looking at Microsoft CoPilot, and you're going to notice inside of Microsoft Word that you'll see Microsoft CoPilot will typically be on the right side menu, and you're seeing it here. What you're going to do is open up the CoPilot. Now, if you have an existing document, CoPilot can work with it. Otherwise, if you have a blank document, you can use CoPilot to start the composing process. If I click on Draft with Copilot, what I can do is I can then draft something from scratch. And this is where Microsoft Copilot will then use the AI in order to draft a document. What I can also do is I can use my existing document in order to draft the document. And so in this case, what I can do is I'm going to click on reference a file. What you'll need is you'll need to type some information in before you can reference a file. Now you can click the generate command. What you can also do is to click reference a file. Now at this point, you won't be able to get the files in order to work from. Microsoft will then look to see if it thinks that they're going to be relevant files. What we're going to do is we're going to click generate. We're going to give Microsoft Copilot some additional information. Right, so we're going to be more specific. We're going to use more of our characters that we can in order to use Microsoft Copilot to draft. We're going to click generate. And we're going to give Microsoft Copilot the opportunity to generate a draft based on our instructions. And Microsoft Copilot will then go through the process of drafting the document that you want. What we can do is we can decide to keep the information that we have, and we can give it parameters. We're going to give it a complex instruction that it may or may not understand, but we're going to try it here. And so Copilot is now going to attempt to do what we asked it to do, which is to rewrite the document so it's easy for an AI in order to narrate. We can then decide we want to keep the document. We can have it rewritten from that panel. And then we have this area over here where we can start to ask questions about the document. So for example, one of the things we can do is we can summarize the document, or we can ask a question about the document. Now, this is all going to take place in this area, in the prompt area. So once the document is written, or if the document is open, we can then ask Microsoft Copilot about the document here in this area. So we can then click enter, and then Microsoft Copilot will then attempt to try to find out about the document according to our query. Now the summary is pretty long in and of itself, but we can copy this summary and we can place it inside of its own Word document. You're going to notice here that we've got references here, and we'll refer to different parts of the document where it gets the conclusion that it came to about the summary of the document. We can choose to work on the summary. And so we can do continuous iterations of what it is that we are producing with Microsoft Copilot. Microsoft Copilot does exist inside of Microsoft PowerPoint. We can open up the Copilot here in this area. And you'll see here we can do individual slides, or we can create an entire presentation. So for example, we can click this button. And you'll notice then that what it's going to do is it's just going to give us a sample prompt. So all this does is it gives us clues on how to prompt the AI inside of Microsoft PowerPoint. So we're going to give it a fairly complex prompt. We're going to send it. And then we'll allow Microsoft Copilot to do the work inside of Microsoft PowerPoint. And what you'll see is that PowerPoint then created a presentation on your behalf. You'll see now that that presentation has areas for you to narrate. And so you have a starting place in order to start working with the presentation. We can then go to this area, we can ask a question, and then we can ask for a summary. Copilot Pro does exist inside of Microsoft Excel. And we're going to already have some data in here. And so what we're going to do is open up Copilot. We're going to open up the side panel. And we're going to give Copilot an opportunity to see what it is we're going to work with. And so in Excel, you can highlight a particular area. What you can do is you can then go to some of the easier commands in order to work with that information. So for example, if we wanted to sort this information, we can then write a prompt asking the AI in order to sort information based on the campaign name. So you're now going to click enter, and then we're going to let Microsoft Excel work with the information. Now, typically, you'd have to have some knowledge of formulas and other areas. What you can now do is you can use plain language prompts in order to organize the information in the way that you want. And we can see the difference in the table. So if we go back, we'll see the sort that is done. We can take an email, and what we can do is we can have Copilot to give us the pertinent details about that email. So we can go here to summarize. Then what's going to happen is Microsoft Copilot will then summarize the information that you have in the email. And so you'll see that information here. When you are drafting an email, what you can do is you can go to Microsoft Copilot Pro. You can then draft the email with Copilot Pro. You can tell Copilot Pro what you want to say in the email. Okay, so we're going to write in a prompt. We're then going to click Generate. And then what Microsoft Copilot will do is it'll attempt to answer your query in the way in which you want. And it's here where we can choose the model that we want. And we can query the chatbot just as we would any other chatbot. But Copilot Pro works inside of Bing, which is also part of its search engine. We'll now click Enter, and then we'll allow Microsoft Copilot to do the work. So Microsoft Copilot will allow you to use it inside of the applications that you already have. And for the sake of this video, we went through Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Outlook, and then Microsoft Edge. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video.